Good morning. Kumusta naman mo? I hope that you are in great shape and you are all fine. So this morning, our topic is about concept and generalization. These two are, of course, very important when we speak about teaching social studies. At the end of the lesson, you are expected to demonstrate your understanding about what is concept and what is generalization, and also show the importance of these two elements, shall we say elements, in relation to the teaching of social studies. Now, let us first talk about concept. What is concept? When we speak about concept is a mental reality. What do we mean mental reality? It means that it exists in our mind. So, when we say concept, naa sa atong hunahuna. It is a subject of our thinking, or concept can also be called idea or concept. Ang atong pagsabot, concept, pagsabot sa usa ka butang. That is why you will be asked, what is your concept of a family? So when you think about family, immediately dunay image, dunay picture nga mutungha sa imong hunahuna. Okay? So that is what we mean by concept. It is something that exists in our mind and it represents something. Okay? So, concept. What is your concept of education? What is your concept of a government? When you will be asked of these things, immediately dunay mo gawas sa imong hunahuna. That is why when we speak about concept, there can be two classifications in terms of form of a concept. Like a concept is abstract and a concept can also be concrete. When is a concept concrete? A concept is concrete when there is an image that can be formed in your mind that will represent that specific concept. For example, concept of an island. Diba? When you are asked about what is your concept of an island, there is an image of an island. It can be Limasawa Island, or Liluan, or San Pedro, or San Pablo, or Canigao, or any island for that matter, that will appear in your mind. And that is an example of a concrete concept. There is an image that represents that particular concept that will appear in your mind. But how about abstract concept? How is abstract different from concrete concept? So when we speak about abstract concept, this is a concept where there is no definite picture or image that will appear in our mind. For example, the concept of health. What is your concept of health? So by itself, there can be no picture or image that will appear in our mind when we speak about health. But perhaps there are other images that will appear, just like a person or an individual with beautiful body, healthy body, strong body, or a baby with reddish or pinkish cheek, no? Mga tao nga dunay lig-on o gahi nga mga lawas. These are our representations of the concept health. What about friendship? Friendship. What is your concept of friendship? Of course, when you think about friendship, there is no definite image that will appear in our mind, but instead, we can imagine of our friends, of anybody who is close to us. These will represent the concept of friendship, because friendship is a concept has no definite form or image. That is why it is considered abstract. So, abstract concept is a kind of concept that there is no definite form or imagery, unlike concrete concept. Gold, stone, tree, house. So with these concepts, there are concrete images, there are shapes and form. But with abstract concept, there can be no image that will form in our mind. Air, can there be an image that will appear in your mind of air? Hangin? Perhaps makabati ta og hangin, makafeel ta sa hangin, but we cannot see hangin. So there is no image of hangin. But instead, we can see, for example, trees, the branches of the trees swaying, no, nagsway-sway kay gihudyop sa hangin. That is our imagery of hangin. Or can we think about spirit? Spirit, for example, is another abstract concept. There is no shape, there is no form. Why porma ang abstract concept? And so, we can further categorize concept according to its origin. In terms of origin, concept can be real or concept can be arbitrary. Concept that is real is a concept that really exists in reality. Meaning to say, the concept has a corresponding reality outside our mind. So when we think about gold, the concept of gold is real because in reality, in our environment, in our surrounding, there are really things that are gold. When we think about tree, the concept tree is a real concept because there are really trees outside our house. Plants, animals, these are real concepts. So a concept is real if there are realities corresponding to that particular concept that exists in the world. Tinuod nga mga konsepto. Children, school, concepts. There are a lot of concepts that are real, tinuod, ang naa sa imong hunahuna. As regards arbitrary concepts, these are concepts that exist in our mind, but they do not exist in reality. So for example, the concept of wakwak. No, moto ba mo og wakwak? So, for example, wakwak. I have heard since long time ago about wakwak, but until now, I have not seen wakwak. Mayon sila, naaranas imong hunahuna, dili na tinuod ng konsepto sa wakwak. Or, Pegasus. Ano sa manang Pegasus? Pegasus is a horse that has wings. Kabadyo na naay pako. They or it exists in our mind. We can think of that horse that has wings, but this kind of horse does not exist in reality. No, sa pagkatinuod, way kabadyo nga dunay pako. So, the concept of Pegasus is arbitrary concept. So, when we speak about concepts, we can say that there are concepts that are real, and there are also concepts that are arbitrary. Hinimo-himo ra sa atong hunahuna, but they do not exist in reality. So these are the characteristics of concept. Now, why is it important to understand concept? You see, in social studies, concept is important because we will be teaching concepts in social studies. The concept of government, the concept of society, the concept of history, etc., etc. It is important that you, as a future teacher, you also have an understanding or clear understanding about social studies concepts, mga konsepto sa social studies. No? Kay atong mapasabot, we will be able to explain to our students certain realities or certain phenomena in the community or in the society if we also have clear concepts about things. Atong mapasabot og sakto ang atong mga estudyante kung kita mismo mga teachers na aputay klarong pagsabot sa mga konsepto nga gigamit sa social studies. No. There is a saying that we cannot give what we don't have. Dili ta makahatag sa mga butang nga kita mismo wapon. And just the same, we cannot explain concepts to our learners, to our students, if we ourselves do not understand clearly those concepts. That is why for an aspiring social studies teacher, you should be able, as much as possible, you should be able to understand these concepts. Unsaon? How? Be observant. Be a reader. Always read books on social studies. Always read books about sociology, economics, history, because this is the way that we can enrich our concepts, our understanding of things. Read newspapers, paminaw sa mga balita. Because this is the way that we can enrich ourselves and for us to understand many concepts. In that way, we can also explain to our students these concepts. You have to understand that there are concepts that are real, and you should also be able to identify and determine what are those concepts that are arbitrary. Mga konsepto nga tinuod atong nadunggan, atong nabatian sa atong mga, labi na sa atong mga katiguangan, but these concepts do not exist in reality. Barang, uban pang mga, there are a lot of things that we have heard in our community, in our society, which we can say these concepts are arbitrary because they do not exist in reality. So aside from concept, we will also talk about generalization. What is generalization? Another term for generalization is conclusion. Conclusion. Mo generalize gani ka, somehow you also make a conclusion. No? You conclude, mga tapulan man na sila. That is a conclusion. Kana sidyang tawhana buutan, that is a conclusion. So when we make a final statement, that is a generalization or a conclusion. But technically, how are we going to define generalization? Generalization is the establishment of the relationship. Pagpakita sa relationship, the establishment of a relationship between one concept and another concept. For example, the concept of a country. Philippines, for example, concept of Philippines and concept of prosperity. Of course, you understand the concept of prosperity. A place or somebody can be considered prosperous. There is prosperity if there is abundance of wealth. No? Kung dato ang usa ka tawo, daghang kwarta ang usa ka tawo, then that person is prosperous. Kung dunay daghang kwarta, no, abunda og bahandi, there is prosperity. That is our concept of prosperity. Okay, so going back to our example, Philippines as a country, the concept of country, Philippines, and concept of prosperity. Now we make a generalization. Is there a relationship between these two concepts? Generalization, or in logic, we also call this as judgment. There is positive and negative relationship. Positive relationship means this concept is related to this other concept. The relationship is positive, di ba? Kung dunay relasyon ang duha ka konsepto, positive na nga relationship. But kung why relationship ang duha, then it is negative. No, there is no relationship, negative. So, going back to our example, Philippines and prosperity. Is the relationship positive or negative? So, if it is positive, then we say Philippines is a prosperous country. Philippines is a wealthy country. Ang Pilipinas, dato nga nasod. If the relationship is positive. But if the relationship is negative, then we will say, ang Pilipinas, dili. Philippines is not a prosperous country. Philippines is not a wealthy country. So when we make this statement, then we have just done generalization. We have just made our conclusion. Okay? So generalization is the establishment of the relationship between two concepts. It's either positive or negative. I repeat, if there is relationship, then it is positive. If there is no relationship, then it is negative. Now, in social studies, we make generalizations. We make conclusions by establishing relationships of concepts. And we can make a good and sound generalization if we have a deep, if not full understanding of concepts. Makahimo ta sa sakto nga conclusion or sakto nga generalization kung dunay sakto nga pagsabot sa mga konsepto. Diba? There is another saying, do not judge a book by its cover. Unsa mo gud nga saying kay kasagaran manggod, there are books nga nindot og cover pero inigbasa nimo sa content sa maong book wa di ay dili nindot, way post nga pagkalibro wa kay makatunan. But there are books nga dili nindot og cover, siguro gisi-gisi og cover, but then when you read the content of that book, then you will realize nga, uy, nindot man daay ning nga pagkalibro. No? Dili nindot tan-awon, pero kung imo nagbasahon, nindot ang ijang content. So that is why we have this saying, do not judge a book by its cover. In relation to social studies, in making generalization and judgments, mao po na siya. We cannot properly judge or we cannot make a proper generalization if we don't have full understanding of those concepts. Makahatag ta og sadyop nga conclusion, makahatag ta og sadyop nga judgment if we don't have a deep and full understanding of the concept. So these two elements, concept and generalization, go hand in hand. And as a social studies teacher, it is important for you to really have a wide understanding of things in the society, particularly about social studies, because it will really help. Dapat daghan kang konsepto nga imong nasabtan o naantiguhan, because the more concepts, then the more correct ang imong mahimo nga mga generalization. Ang imong pagsabot sa mga butang will help you make a good judgment. Because kung wa kay full understanding, wa kay full knowledge, then mohimo ka og conclusion, then most likely 99% ang imong judgment, ang imong generalization sa joke. Parehar po na sa tao. Another saying, first impression lasts, for which personally, ako mismo, dili na ho appreciated ang maong saying. Kanang miyon ka nga first impression lasts. No? Ang imo ko ng first impression, mao na mulungtad hangtod sa hangtod. Dili. Because there are instances nga ma-meet nimo ang usa ka tawo, Pero, as time goes by, lahi di ay ang isang pagkatao compared to the first time that you meet that person. No? First impression. Dili man ka makahatag og judgment may tungod sa usa ka tawo base sa first time ninyo nga panagkita. Kay labi na kung kamo magsige na mo og uban-uban, then you will discover more about that person nga makaingon ka nga lahi man day siya nga pagkatao. Abi nimo og istrikto ang maong tao, but later on sa inyong sige o kudzog-kudzog, then you will realize that that person is a good person, compassionate, humble. Siguro during the first time nga nag-meet mo, laban ijang or that person is not feeling well, that is why the person projected a somehow negative image, but as you go along, you will realize that that person is a good person. That is why there are many instances that people will give wrong judgments or wrong generalization because they do not have deep understanding or concept about that thing. Tungod sa mga maling akala. So for example, as we are approaching election in May 2022, naglipan na ang mga fake news. This is one challenge that we have with the introduction of social media and the internet. There is an avalanche. Take note, I'm using the term avalanche. Murag gihagsak ang daghanang impormasyon nga moabot nato. There are a lot of information that are accessible. But the thing is, some of these information are fake. They are not true. They are arbitrary. Mga hinimo-himo lamang ang mga impormasyon. And that is why it is important for you to be able to identify and determine what is a true information and what is a fake information. Because if we are fed and if we believe on fake information and news, then what can you expect? Your judgment will be erroneous. Sadyok ang imong judgment. Sadyok ang imong generalization. Okay? So it is important that you should be able to gather real information so that judgment and generalization will also be correct. So these are the related, situations towards concepts. The more concept that you have, then the deeper understanding you will get, and the better and the more efficient you can explain things to your learners or to your students or pupils, and the sound judgment you can make. So these are the things that you have to consider being a social science teacher. First, gather as many concepts as you can. You read books, you read newspaper, you watch news. No. You should acquire concepts, because the more concepts that you have, the more efficient you can explain things to your pupils or to your learners, and the more correct generalization or judgment you can make. So I hope that you have seen the importance and value of these two elements, concepts and judgment. So with that, I wish you well, and this would be the last week of our class, but I just want to let you know that I will continue to upload lessons because the time is just really very short and I still have a lot of things to share to you. Okay, so just continue your learning with your lessons in social studies, and always remember that the more concept that you will acquire, the more efficient you will be in teaching and also in making generalizations or judgment and conclusion. Thank you and good morning.